Me and Lamar had sat down with the other elders in the church, and we were talking about what worship songs we should use for today's message. And that last one could not have fit better, because we here at Crossing Crown want to say thank you to the veterans. We had a video, but unfortunately due to technical difficulties, we're not able to play it for you, so I'll just express how much we want to say thank you to the veterans. And I think it's fitting that it's 11 o'clock, and we're meeting here to say thank you for your service on the 11th day at the 11th hour. Because as Veterans Day was culminated, it was actually originally called Armistice Day, the armistice of World War I. And they signed that armistice on the 11th hour of the 11th day. So I think that's very fitting. Today we'll be covering a message out of Matthew chapter 20, verses 20 through 28. And as you turn there, I just want to express that most veterans, if you talk to a veteran, nobody's ever going to say, my sacrifice was 5 years. My sacrifice was 20 years. My sacrifice was 10 years. Most of us are going to say, if not all of us, my service. I served my country for X amount of years. And that's exactly what Christ viewed his service as. He didn't go around saying my sacrifice. He served. He came on this earth to serve and not be served. And that's what our message is going to be covering today. Jesus was well known for taking everything that we know on this planet, in our ways, in our hearts, and just flipping it upside down. Saying, no, you're doing it wrong. That's not how it's supposed to be done. And servitude is no different in that subject. So with that being said, we'll go to verse 20, and I'll read it through, and then we'll go back and unpack those verses. And I'll be reading from the New American Standard. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to Jesus with her sons, bowing down and making a request of him. And he said to her, what do you wish? She said to him, command that in your kingdom these 2 sons of mine may sit, one on your right and one on your left. But Jesus answered, you do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink? They said to him, we are able. He said to them, my cup you shall drink, but sit on my right and on my left. This is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father. And hearing this, the 10 became indignant with the 2 brothers. But Jesus called them to himself and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. It is not this way among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Verses 20 through 22. Obviously the mother of the sons of Zebedee, he's talking about the apostles James and John. And in 21 through 22, he said to her, what do you wish? She said to him, command that in your kingdom these 2 sons of mine may sit, one on your right and one on your left. I want to pause there for a moment. How many people in this room can relate to that, saying, in this world, I want what's best for my loved one? Whether you're a parent, or an uncle, or a brother, or even just a really good friend. You always want to see the loved ones, the ones dearest to you. You want to see them do well. You want to see them with status. Even in prayer, we can be known to do this about ourselves, asking God for something, not even knowing what his greater plan is for us. We might say, you know, I really want that car, but God knows something about that car that we don't. You know, it can be, you know, even if something as powerful as asking for a loved one to be cured of a disease or something that's terminal. We may ask them, God, please heal them. But that may be God giving them mercy, saying, no, this is their time to come to me, because if not, they'll suffer more. He's relieving them of that pain and taking away that longer suffering that they may be up against. But Jesus answered, you do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup I am about to drink? And when they answered him, we are able. The cup that he's referring to is the scourge and crucifixion that he knows he's about to go through. And by this time, Jesus had predicted his death 3 times, and every time it went misunderstood. The disciples, even though they followed him for years at this point, they just didn't understand, they weren't comprehending what Jesus was trying to say, that he's about to go to the cross and before that be beaten and just destroyed in the flesh, and able in order to take our sin upon his body and die for us. And just like an eager person, when they were like, oh, we're able. How many of us looked at a situation and went, that's not as bad as it looks because I really want that thing on the other side there. It actually reminded me of the TV show. I don't even know if it's still on. There was a TV show that used to be on the reality TV show called Fear Factor. Do you all remember that show? People, for $25,000, people would beat themselves. On numerous occasions, I would see people getting sick, breaking their skin and bleeding, just to win $25,000. Because they were so eager to win the money. All they saw was the reward at the end, what they thought that they really needed. But they were willing to just ignore everything that they were going through because they were so eager. And that's just like us, as an eager person, to say, yeah, I know you said that. I know you said that you're going to be beaten and broken, but you're going to start a kingdom, and that's what I want. Forget suffering, crucifixion, whatever. Yeah, okay. Can I be in your kingdom though? What's up with that? Come on. Moving on to verse 23. He said to them, my cup you shall drink, but to sit on my right and on my left, this is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father. Now, this was Jesus yet again laying down a prophecy of his own, saying that, yes, you're going to be persecuted, you're going to be mistreated, and you're going to be exiled in my name. And what's awesome about that is that Jesus tells us that if all those things happen to us, we're blessed. And that's a good thing. But they didn't understand that. Because you see in Acts 12, James got put to death by the sword by King Herod Agrippa. And John ultimately was exiled and died of old age, alone on an island, according to Revelations 1:9. Verse 24 and 25. Hearing this, the 10 became indignant with the 2 brothers. I'm going to pause there again. This verse added in there into the flow of this scripture, it doesn't come right out and say it, but it says, and hearing this, the 10 became indignant with the 2 brothers. Now that tells me 2 things. One, that the other 10 were not present when the request was made of Jesus. And the other thing is that they got indignant. They got very angry about the situation. They were like, why are these 3 going and asking something of Jesus like that? Imagine it this way. A very high position comes open at work. And you know that you're in the running for that promotion. Or, for you sports fanatics, the team captain just graduated. So that means the team captain position is up for grabs now, right? And let's say there's 12 people all in the running for those positions. But one of your teammates goes straight to the coach's office, knocks on the door with his mom, and says, hey, can I have that position? How would that make you feel inside? I know me, if I was up for a promotion, especially a really high promotion like that, that'd make me pretty upset. That would make me indignant. But Jesus called them to himself and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. Now, in most cases, as I'm reading the word, when I read the rulers of the Gentiles, or when Jesus refers to the Gentiles, I look at it as the secular view. What's the world view of the secular, what's the secular view on this in the world? So, when you're at a job and somebody may not have been through all the leadership classes or all of the servant leadership classes that are out there, and they're not necessarily the best boss. They're rude to you, they cut you down, they make you feel bad. I know that the military in here can relate to that. I know that the veterans in here can relate to that. Because authority is, in a lot of cases, given out, and it can go to people's heads. They start abusing that authority, they start misusing that authority, and it can be very hard to tolerate that. It is very hard to tolerate that. And so I always view, when it says the Gentiles, I always say, okay, what is he saying about the secular view? What am I doing in a secular way that I should be doing in the way of Jesus? It is not this way among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. Jesus is teaching, I think it's Diane, that the path to greatness is servanthood. And we are all called to be great. Jesus is telling everyone here that if you want to be great in my kingdom, you have to be a servant. You have to learn to serve before you can lead. And this is so true in every aspect of life. When you go into a position at work, most of the time, you don't just jump in there and immediately get a supervisor position. You have to take your cuts, you know? You have to take your swings, you have to take your bruises. You have to start at the bottom, you have to start somewhere. Now, whether that somewhere was finishing high school and going to college, or finishing high school and going straight into the workforce, or finishing high school and going straight into the service. You're going to learn skills and learn how to treat people, and you're going to become a better leader for it. And this is exactly what Jesus is trying to teach us here, that if you want to be great, you have to learn to serve first, and serve the people that you are leading. These two verses completely throw a wrench in what we know. In the secular workforce, in the military. And in Galatians 5:13, for you were called to freedom, brethren, only do not turn your freedom into an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. Can everybody here in this room admit that they love someone? I think that's pretty easy, right? We all love somebody somewhere, even friends outside us. We all love someone somewhere. And don't we always do the best we can to serve them and make them a better person for it? Jesus is telling us that our call is to love, through our freedom, everyone, and try and make everyone better. We should always, by all of our interactions, be constantly trying to better someone, better their lives, make themselves better. Not for our benefit, but for theirs. It's got to come from the right place. Now, so many times in life, when I ask somebody, hey, do you want to help serve in X ministry? Do you want to come help me do this work for somebody? Are they going to pay me? No. But do you want to come help me because they need the help? So many times I've heard, I don't have time. I don't have the time, I'm too busy. Work, kids, school. I've even been guilty of it at one point or another. We all have. So I thought, since that's the most common excuse I hear, let's see if I can just take a moment and poke a hole in that. On average, American adults are watching 5 hours and 4 minutes of television per day, according to the New York Times. The average American spends 24 hours a week online, and if you are like the average person, you'll spend more than 5 years of your life on social media. Does that make anybody think? Maybe we should sacrifice a little bit of time on the TV or in front of the screen in general and start thinking about what we can do for our fellow man, our neighbors. We live in a city, and I never knew this until moving to the city, but it's possible to live next to someone for years and don't even know their name. But that person next door to you might just need their lawn cut. They might need their trash cans taken out to the street. They might need something super simple that doesn't take you but maybe an extra 2 minutes. Jesus is telling us that it's our job. It is because of the freedom that we are earned, that we are given, not earned, given through Christ, sacrifice, to take that extra step, to walk that extra mile. Give up an hour. You still get 4 hours of TV. It's okay. Now the key verse here, is verse 28. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. I think that one of the best examples, personally I feel, one of the best examples of this is in John 13, 1 through 17, where Jesus, taking it upon himself to wash the disciples' feet. Now I want you to understand a little bit of history and backstory, cultural impact of this. It was customary in Jerusalem, in Israel, that when you had company over, the shoe of the day was a sandal. And when you had company come over, it was one of your slaves' jobs to sit there at the door in a towel and wash your company's feet as they came through the door. Now Jesus had just finished having dinner with his disciples, and nobody took on the position of that slave. They didn't have any slaves, and nobody took that position willingly. So Jesus stood up, disrobed, wrapped himself in a towel, and sat down to wash the disciples' feet for them. This is one of my favorite examples of him serving, because not only is it a plain example of our Lord and Savior humbling himself, but it's also metaphorical in the way that when we're born again, Jesus not only cleanses our feet, but he cleanses us from the head to the feet. Just like Peter said in that passage, he said, Lord, you'll never wash my feet. And Jesus said, if you don't let me wash your feet, then you have no place with me. So what did he say? Wash me from my head to my feet, wash my armpits, wash everything. He said, clean me, wash me completely clean. That's right. If that's what it takes, cleanse me. Now, the words to serve in this passage are translated from the Greek word diakonisai. This literally means to wait upon. But in a figurative way, it also means to teach. So a lot of translations will say to minister to, or to teach, or to serve. Now think about when you go to a restaurant. You sit down at a table, and after the hostess has left, your server comes up. What's the first job that they have for you? That they are fulfilling for you? They usually give you some water, right? And then they teach you something. They teach you things about the restaurant that you don't know. What are the specials? What do you have to drink? What's good here? What do people normally order? They're teaching you, but ultimately their job is to serve you through the night while you're under their care. Now, serving doesn't come natural to most of us, especially when it's inconvenient for our plans. As I stated earlier, the times that we want to do what we want to do, what are our earthly and fleshly desires? To be lazy, to call it what it is, to sit in front of a TV, to sit in front of a computer, and it's not what comes natural to most of us. I know it didn't for me for a long time. Jesus' ultimate point on this earth was to show us what we always should have been. Without sin. Living in the flesh, but without sin. I heard a story once, and it left a really big impact on my life. I want to share it with you now. There was a father and a son getting ready to go on a fishing trip, but the father worked for the railroad, and because a bridge was broken and unserviceable, he had to go down on a Saturday, go down to work, and just simply walk over across the bridge, make his way across the bridge, and flip the switch on the tracks. Now, if you're not familiar, what that means is all it means is you have a fork in the tracks. He had to hit a button or flip a switch that moved the tracks from going to the bridge to going straight on and their ultimate detour diverting around the bridge. The father looked at his son and said, wait here, it's dangerous going across this bridge. I want you to wait here, I'm going to go across, and I'm going to flip the switch and I'll be right back and then we'll be on our way. Now, the father got over across the bridge, got to the switch house, flipped the switch, and then he heard the train coming. And he looked up. And his son was caught in the switch on the tracks in front of the train. Do I flip the switch and send these hundreds of passengers hurling into this broken bridge? Or do I stand here and watch my only son die? Ultimately, his decision was the one that every parent here would say is the hardest. And he stood there and he watched his only son get run over by a train. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, that's exactly what Jesus did for us. He stood in the tracks. He was caught in the tracks. And he took that. But I actually disapprove of this story. Because the way that this story is told originally is a disservice to what Jesus and the Father did for us. Because it wasn't an accident. I feel that a more accurate depiction of this would have been that the switch was broken and the son had to stand there on the tracks, holding the track on the right path. And even though it wasn't a guaranteed thing that the people on that train would remember the boy, or let alone come to love him, he did it anyways. And the father stood there and watched. This would be a much more accurate depiction of what Jesus did for us. He stood on the tracks, holding the switch, keeping us from going to that broken bridge, the broken life that everyone here lives. He saved us from that. He saved us from that death, and he saved us from those trials. He didn't view this as something hard to do. He didn't view it as sacrifice necessarily. He knew it was a sacrifice, but he viewed it as serving us. And I think the most beautiful thing about that message, the beautiful thing that a lot of people may miss when they hear that story of the cross, is that even if only one of us was on that train, if the conductor was the only one on the train, and I was the one conducting, Lamar was the one conducting, Francis was the one conducting, if any one person in here was the one conducting, Jesus would have done it anyways. He would have given his life and served everyone here, served that one person to keep them from living that broken life on the bridge. I'll close with this. Serving is a sacrifice for many of us. It doesn't come easy. We live in the 21st century where we stay busy. But we're called to do something great. We're called to be great. And in Jesus' kingdom, that greatness means serving and loving those around us. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we thank you for what you did. We thank you for this message. We thank you that you came and you served us by giving your life as a ransom, serving all of us, serving every one of us here, to keep us from living that broken life and crossing that ugly, destroyed bridge of life. Lord, we'll never know the pain and the magnitude of that sacrifice that you suffered, but we thank you for it. You served everyone here, and I hope that through your message and through your word, Lord, some of us may learn to come, bow before your cross, and learn to serve others. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
So here I am, all I had. I raise my hands to worship you. I want to say thank you. Oh, thank you.
accepted Jesus Christ into your heart, and this message touched you in some way, if his word has touched you in some way, please don't leave here without praying with somebody, whether it's somebody you know, who you love and loves you and will make that walk with you, or if you want to come speak with either myself, Brother Frank, Brother Warner, we would be glad to take time and pray with you. And finally, thank you to the veterans once again. Thank you for the sacrifice that you made to this country, even if you don't view it as such. Before you leave, please come see me and over at the Children's Ministry, because we have a gift or some gifts to hand out to you. Thank you again.